This USA MVP, I'm here to talk about the Manny Pacquiao versus Brandon Rios fight coming up. Going into this fight, I'm going to talk a little bit about their previous fights. Brandon Rios is just coming off of a loss to Mike Alvarado. It was a rematch, and Brandon Rios lost the decision. And then in the first fight, you got Brandon Rios winning by stoppage. In that fight, I felt like Mike Alvarado stood right in front of him, and he didn't really use any footwork or try to get out of the way of Brandon Rios, and that's a tailor-made fight for Brandon Rios. And then in the second fight, Mike Alvarado, he adapted in the fight, and he fought off his back foot for a little bit, and he moved out of the way of a lot of Brandon Rios' punches, didn't make it very easy for Brandon Rios to land. And stylistically, I felt like Brandon Rios does not know how to adapt to movement very well. Going into Manny Pacquiao's last fight, he fought Juan Manuel Marquez, and then the fight before that, he fought Timothy Bradley. And the Timothy Bradley fight is a very debatable fight. I personally feel like Manny Pacquiao won by 2 rounds. Some people say Manny Pacquiao was robbed. It's debatable, but that's a long subject to get into on this video. In the fight with Juan Manuel Marquez, he was knocked down and then he was knocked out. Up until the knockout, I personally felt like Manny Pacquiao was winning the fight. He was using some very good, effective aggression. But take my hat off to Juan Manuel Marquez. He's a great counter puncher. He timed him perfectly, and he ended the fight on a knockout. And the other fights, I felt like Juan Manuel Marquez's physique did not look the same as it did in that fight. Some people suspect him of using performance-enhancing drugs. Personally, he did look bigger. So you put 2 and 2 together, what you get. So I'm not going to really discredit Manny Pacquiao in those 2 consecutive losses. Still think he's a great fighter. Personally, I also feel like Mike Alvarado is a C-level fighter. I don't think Brandon Rios should have lost the fight to Mike Alvarado. So that tells me a lot about Brandon Rios. I personally think Manny Pacquiao is a great offensive fighter. And then you have Brandon Rios, who has no defense, and he fights with his chin. He's what I call a very good rock'em sock'em robot. And I think this fight is going to go very similar to Antonio Margarito versus Manny Pacquiao. I feel like Manny Pacquiao's footwork and his aggression is going to be a little bit too much for Brandon Rios, where they might stop the fight in the later rounds. I think it's going to be very one-sided. But on another hand, I feel like Brandon Rios does have a puncher's chance. And the reason why I say he has a puncher's chance is because Manny Pacquiao is coming off of a devastating knockout loss. And when you get knocked out like that, sometimes you don't fully recover. We don't know the quality of Manny Pacquiao's chin after that devastating knockout. And in this fight, I also feel like this could be a fight that's going to make Brandon Rios knows that he does not belong in the 147-pound division. He probably is going to need to go back to 140, where he can use his physical attributes on those smaller fighters. Don't just watch the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel USA MVP. Leave your comments. Also subscribe to my boys page Boxing Wave. Let me know what you think.